Board, I call the meeting to order. This is the Finance Committee meeting of Monday, January 9th. It is 6:01 p.m. and in attendance we have Cheryl Zarella-Burke, Todd Dargy, John Smalling, Michael Bennett, Jim Walters. Where's Frank Johnston? Oh, there he is. Sorry, I lost you on the shuffle here. And our usual support from Sandy Nolan. Thank you. And I think, are we recording, Sandy? Yes, we are.
Yes.
Okay, so we're recorded, so we're all set there. This is the first time in memory we've had a full quorum of this august body, so I'm very pleased with that. On the agenda this evening, first is acceptance of minutes, and with my limited time, I haven't had time to, we have a backlog of minutes, which really gets to the third item we have here that we're going to need to get organized and get in shape. And my commitment to you guys before I end my term early will be to get those minutes in shape, hopefully with new secretarial support. We currently have 3 applicants for the role. So what we propose to do is we'll send the resumes of all 3 around right after this meeting. We got 2 of them over the weekend. Send the 3 around right after this meeting, and then put that on the agenda for our next meeting, which we'll come up with a time for shortly. So that'll be the historical minutes and the minutes from our last meeting. The big exercise tonight should be the budget assignments, and just to go over for our new members, the duties that are required of that. I think it's going to be a challenging year. Part of what I want to do, though, before we do that, because I think it bears on how we do this. I think at the last joint meeting of the selectmen, I had to let the board know that I'd be needing to resign. So we should be amongst ourselves thinking about a new chairperson for the Finance Committee. Now, Sandy, I was in maybe 3 months. I think I had 6 meetings under my belt.
Right.
And I had to replace a PhD in municipal finance. So I had big shoes to fill. I certainly did not fill them, but I know that anybody on this committee right now could do the chairman's role. So I think it's just a question of deciding amongst ourselves and seeing who's interested in taking the role on. So we should just keep that in mind, that part of my objective here is to get us in a good place so that I can leave the board. I was supposed to do this in July, and then we had Charlie, and we had a town manager for 30 days. Then we lost 2 Board of Selectmen members, and we were down 2 on our own committee. So it's been sort of deferred because of that. But I'm under orders to slow down, so I've got to do this. On budget assignments, if I share my screen, then we could go through the assignments as they were last cast. We did this last meeting, but we didn't have new members, so maybe we go through them as they were last cast and go through the departments and see where we can just get things assigned for next year, and then talk about what's required of everyone on that. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah, sounds good.
Let me share my screen here. Oh. Caesar, any way we can get participant screen sharing back on?
You should be able to. Is it not letting you?
Yeah, it says
here we
host,
go.
it says
I
host disabled.
just changed it.
Okay, let me try again. That's better. Screen 2. What? Here we go. Everybody see this?
Yes.
Okay. these were what we used going into last year. So it was 10/21 of last year and worked us through the whole year. So first up, we have the departments that were assigned to Todd. So it was accountants, assessors, board of health, building inspector, collector, tax collector, treasurer, the board of selectmen themselves, data processing, and the town clerk. I think where we left our last conversation, I think, Todd, you were going to keep your assignment for this year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm open to, take on whatever is needed, but I think we talked last time, I think like John and I and others thought, it makes sense to kind of just keep the assignments we had last year, just to do it and, run through it.
Okay. Let's work on that premise so that everybody sees it, and then we'll come back around. So John has appeals, conservation, planning board, Halifax and lights in Halifax, holidays in Halifax, the housing authority, weights and measures, youth and rec, COA, building committee, civil defense.
No, those are mine.
Oh, sorry. Stop. Youth and rec. I should have stopped there. Sorry. Then the next ones are Cheryl's. So initial brief is we'll leave those with John going into the second year. Cheryl's got COA, building, civil defense, fire, police, and the dog officer, which is Chief Chavez as well. We'll need or Sandy, this is a question. We'll need nominees for capital planning this year.
We will need a liaison for capital planning. Last year, we actually had 2 of yous, but usually it is one liaison from the finance committee. So it's up to, if Todd wants to keep it or if someone else wants to take it on.
Okay.
Yeah, I would definitely like to stay on if I could.
Okay.
Then what I'm realizing, we've never had a quorum this big, so people will be able to have fewer committees and spend more time, fewer departments and spend more time on them, hopefully, so we can carve those out, I think. Then Michael had cemetery, highway, recycling, and water. Water being the big one there. And for our new members, water has a separate P&L, if you will, because they're a major revenue source. So they operate a bit differently and need different questions and different considerations when talking about water. Mike O'Brien, who's no longer on the committee, went back to school, so there's a clear opening there with and these were, no offense guys, but these were typically the ones that we gave to the rookies. So it was, first year was easier to use these, so it was veteran services, historic, library, and parks. The only big one there being library and parks, obviously. And then last year I had schools, Halifax and Silver Lake. So I'm open to suggestions on how we do this. I mean, if we start with Todd, you've got the biggest list. So hiving off, I think I hear you on keeping capital planning. So if there were 2 here that you'd want to take off, what would you think?
I mean, it doesn't matter, I guess, if I had to choose to, maybe the Board of Health and Building Inspector.
Okay. Bear with me, guys. Then John, if we were to take one or two of these off, what I'm hoping is this year we have solid, we're going to have difficult conversations with our departments. And it comes down to the letter that that Sandy wrote. I know that went out and we had.
Actually, Todd did a very good job.
Yeah, that was, I mean, it was really nicely done. 2 of these, John, that you think about turning over?
It doesn't really matter. I mean, I'm fine with keeping them because some of them are pretty lighter load,
That's true.
obviously, like
That's true.
effects and
Let's skip
lights and
through that.
so if it's better to leave me with that, with all of them, and because I know we'll have to divide Tom's up as well
Yeah,
too, right?
and Michael's.
And Michael's, yeah, I think last meeting we might have divided up Michael's. I don't have those notes though, or one of the last meetings between
Yeah, I wanted to start over with.
yeah. So I
Jim
mean,
and
I'm
Frank.
fine if you want to just leave mine the way it is, and then we could focus on dividing these up, just because again, some of them are pretty light
They're tiny.
budgets that didn't require a whole lot of conversation behind it.
Yeah. So why don't we divvy up health and buildings, and then these two lists that you see here. Schools are, I think, a brief in and of themselves. I think if someone took the schools and library, that would make a lot of sense. There's a lot of sort of budget overlay between those two, Jim or Frank, and then the others would be health, buildings, and everything that we see here from Mike O'Brien.
I'll take, well, last meeting or 2 meetings back, I had picked up the veterans, the historic commission, historic district. So I'll take the, what was it, buildings, and what was the other one?
Health department.
And health department, if you don't mind, I'll
Buildings,
take
yeah.
those.
Okay, and then Jim, that would leave you with the schools and the library.
That
That
works.
work for you?
Yes,
Okay.
that works.
Okay. Schools takes a little more time. There's and I can bring you up to speed. There's a perennial lobbying for a carve out. There's a series of meetings usually that the superintendent holds over at the school to just kind of keep us, and she's always really good about inviting us as they're working through the budgets.
Mhm.
So I think I can get you up to speed on those and kind of what needs to happen there. But it's always a tough kind of set of conversations because they're always faced with budget shortages. Last year was the transportation issue that really took a nick out of their budgets, but it's always a challenge. Okay, so if with those as the decisions here, I'll revise this evening and get it out to everyone, and so that everyone knows their assignments, if that works. Sandy, there's no vote involved. These are just putting our assignments together, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right, budget assignments, and we should talk about duties. The idea here would be call each of your department heads, liaison chairs in the instance of the schools. It's Summer and Jason and Jill Prue, just to let them know, and we'll let them know that you're the contact point, Jim.
Okay.
But call your department heads and set up a meeting and then usually it's a couple of meetings over the first 3 or 4 months of the year as they're putting their budget together. And our objective from that, and Sandy, correct me, but I've always been advised, our objective from that is to be able to be as articulate as possible about their budget. No judgments about what they're deciding. Try and continue to remind them of what the budget guidance is that we've given them. But the idea is that at the town meeting, if there are questions about any of the budgets, you would be the person most well-versed in that budget and in the story behind their rationale for how they put the budget together. So that with each and every vote, if there's an issue that needs to be described or discussed, you'd be the finance committee member who would be most articulate about that particular issue.
Right. Your job is not to advocate for them, but to be able to explain what they've given you and the reasons why.
Right. Now, in town meeting, you're not advocating. In those meetings that we have with them, inevitably you get into discussions of what's reasonable, what's going to fly, what's not going to fly, kind of just being a sounding board for them, but you're entirely that. It's not for you to push back and influence what they ultimately come forward with. It is to seek to understand mainly. So any questions about that? I mean, folks that have been through it last year, they get it. Frank or Jim, any questions?
So I guess I just have one. The meetings that are being scheduled, are they scheduled by the departments or are they scheduled by the finance committee members?
By you. You reach out to them and set up some time. It's usually a phone conversation initially.
Okay,
Then pretty soon you will see, sorry, I got the wrong mouse here. Pretty soon you will see this begin to get populated.
right.
So in attachments in your OneDrive, Sandy will start to populate this with budgets. And in those budgets, you'll have all of the material that you need to have the discussions and to begin to understand what's there. This is all last year's stuff. But pretty soon, I'm sure Sandy will start adding to that mix.
I
Okay.
have started, if you go on into your OneDrive, under the shared, there I did create a folder that is FY24 budgets.
All
right.
And
I don't see
Yep.
it yet, but is it in finance committee or no?
try in finance committee.
Yeah, it's in finance committee.
All right.
I don't know, I can't get on.
Cheryl, we're gonna have Caesar give you a call. There you go.
There it is.
Yes,
Okay, so we
FY24
have we
submitted
have
budget.
that, and that'll be the
Mhm.
folder
Yeah.
that we work out of.
I
Right.
can't
The rest
get
of the
on
year.
my laptop.
But that's where you guys can find it in OneDrive. If you need help, Caesar's always helpful with helping us figure that all out. Okay, so are we're good on assignments and duties?
Tom, I have a question on assignments. Under Mr. O'Brien, it also shows parks, and I believe that Jim was picking that up last time, so I should probably take that off his plate because it sounds like he's going to have his hands full with just the schools.
Yeah. So my presumption was we do vet services. Yes, that library, Halifax Elementary and Silver Lake is one brief. And then you have all the other ones, Frank.
Okay, very
Okay.
good.
Sandy, maybe you can help me too. I won't send this out tonight. I should send it to you and we should update all of the names and contacts.
Sure.
Because as I look at this,
Yeah, the
Yeah,
chief.
some
needs
have
for
to
changed.
be-
bureaus, we've got
Yep.
to put new things in there. It's probably the same email address, just a different person.
Different name, yeah, it's Mike.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
put Mike in there, and then I'm not sure about some of these others.
Sure. I'll make sure they're
Okay.
updated.
All right, great, thank you.
That'll
Um,
come from you, Sandy.
Pardon me?
You'll send that out when it's ready?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Okay, so with respect to meetings going forward, Sandy, I think this is about the time of year where we started doing weekly cadence.
Yep.
And we're gonna need it through end of March.
Right. We have a couple of holidays thrown in there, but usually that's what we do. We try to meet every Monday.
Except for the holidays, that we
Right.
do
So
every
next
Monday.
Monday is a holiday.
Yeah.
But we could meet the 23rd, the 30th, and then February 6th and 13th
Okay.
and 27th. So it'd be every Monday except for holidays.
I think that makes sense. I mean, that's what we did last year.
Mhm.
And it was still tight.
Right.
Now, sometimes we meet for half an hour, but I recall some of those meetings in the first quarter go an hour and a half or more, just because we've got things to cover.
Right.
And what is helpful is if we don't have a meeting for the next 2 weeks, you'll hopefully be able to contact your liaisons and begin to look at that initial budget as submitted. I don't know how many will be submitted in the next 2 weeks, but Sandy, what's the cadence on department heads submitting their budgets?
They're starting to submit them. I think I gave them through the end of this week.
Okay.
So I should be receiving them. I've put a few in there already.
Okay,
And just so you all know, we do have our new town administrator starting next week.
Okay.
So he will most likely be attending all of the meetings,
okay, good.
but we will definitely have him on the 23rd.
Okay, that's excellent. That's really good. Looking forward to meeting him.
Yep.
Okay. So we'll do weeklies between now and the next one. We'll have preliminary budgets will be in the folder for us to review, and reaching out to your department heads will be sort of the one thing that we'll need to do between now and then. And then you start looking at the budgets with Sandy, and the agendas will sort of change and be more work oriented than administrative. Okay. Sandy, I didn't get over to town hall to check if there was any correspondence this week. Was there any?
Unfortunately, I didn't
Okay.
check.
So I'll
I'm
check it for next. Let's presume there was not. And we did get 2 resumes from Indeed from the posting that Caesar put up for us, which was great. So we'll have that on the next agenda, and I'll make sure to check the box on any correspondence that's come in. Other than those 2 resumes, we'll deal with that.
Excuse me, Tom.
Yeah.
Hi, also too, I have a folder in the clerk's office for any wage and personnel requests that have come to me.
Oh, okay.
So I'll leave those, the deadline's the 11th, so should I just put those in your mailbox?
Yeah, if you could, that would be great. If you could put them in the mailbox, I will come over tomorrow and pick them up at the end of day.
Well, why don't you wait till after the 11th? Because I think the
Okay.
11th
Oh,
was the
right.
deadline.
Of course. Yeah. So yeah, we'll pick them up. I'm gonna come over and pick things up tomorrow anyway, but yeah, so wait till after the 11th, which is tomorrow, day after tomorrow.
No,
Yeah, you're right. I missed a day. So yeah, I'll come over later in the week and get those.
okay.
So on our next meeting, we've talked about the things that we've already talked about. We'll have secretarial candidates to review. We should also, whether it's a separate agenda item or not, about suggestion about sort of position consolidation so that we can beef this roll up. Maybe Sandy, if you could bring any other open committee secretarial roles that are there. I'm not sure if that's appropriate or not, but it seems like if these candidates wanted to do more hours, we could do it that way by having multiple engagements. But what do you think of that? That was Todd's, which I thought made a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Todd's suggestion.
Well, currently we have zoning, planning, and conservation commission secretary positions all open.
Wow.
We can certainly talk to whoever is interested, if they are interested in more hours
Okay.
doing that. Truthfully, just speaking from the background of being a regulatory board secretary, I do think that the zoning and planning may want to consolidate within themselves.
Yeah.
Those two positions, they make a lot of sense. They both deal with
does.
zoning bylaws and that type of thing.
Okay.
Conservation is a little, their regulations are a little different, very demanding
Okay.
to know all of their regulations. So it depends on if the person is looking for more work, they can certainly apply for that position as well.
Okay.
I
So we should keep them
don't
as
know that
separate
we-
positions and leave it to the candidate to do that.
I believe that's the way
Okay.
we would want to do it. I know
Okay.
that the building inspector, who is the department head for the regulatory board, was talking about the same thing. If he had someone who was interested in more hours, combining a couple of the positions. So
Okay.
we
So we'll
actually
leave that
did
to the
try do it.
candidates in the
We had
office.
a board of health secretary who came on. We tried to get her to do FinCom, but she only wanted the 10 hours a week. So
Okay. All right.
I just have a question on that. If the secretarial position associated with the finance committee, is there any conflicts with working with other boards and groupings due to the financial committee? Or
I don't believe so because it's only the secretary, Frank. There is
There is
as
for
far
us,
as if
Frank.
you're a finance committee member. But if you're the secretary, all you're doing is taking minutes.
Minutes.
You're not passing any judgments. So I don't believe there is any conflict.
Yeah, for us, of course, there is, but there's no conflict for the administrative support.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, chair nominations, Todd's suggestion, budget focus memo, meeting frequency, historical correspondence. Other than an ask that we think about the succession issue for next time. So on the 23rd, maybe we can raise that as well.
Yep.
Where we've covered everything in the agenda. Is there anything else that any other committee member or member of the public wants to bring forward?
Just a reminder on that there is a wage and personnel hearing on the 25th, which you will all need to be at. So that it will be the Board of Selectmen and your board, which is Wednesday, the 25th. And I think it was at 6 o'clock. I'll have to look at that again.
I think it was at 7, Sandy.
Was it 7?
I think they
Okay,
said
it was at
7. And I had asked for a Zoom on that, but I won't need that because I will now be available on the 25th. So
Okay,
I know Caesar has a little extra work he has to do upstairs to do that.
all right, so that's good. Then we wouldn't need that.
That's good.
And as Sue had mentioned, we are starting to get proposals in. So those will be kept. The deadline for that is the 11th. So we will keep those in a folder. You guys will, Tom, if you want, I can scan those and make sure that all the members get a copy of them ahead of time.
Actually, that would be great. Then we're prepped for the meeting on the 25th.
Right, because I'm going to have to do the same for the selectmen as well.
Okay, if you wouldn't mind, that would be great.
Okay.
I just had 2 quick items too, Tom.
Yeah, Todd.
First one is to you, Sandy, for the free cash certification. Have we heard anything on that? It's usually like this week or so, right, that we normally get that?
Right, we should have, I was hoping to hear this week. I will reach out again. I reached out at the end of the week last week to my Department of Revenue representative, and he was out of the office. So I will reach out again to him, and I'll put his supervisor's name on it. And that way, hopefully I'll get some answers, because they've stopped calling and asking questions. Usually that means within a short amount of time, I get the answer. So.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you for that. And then the second item is so last year we had talked about maybe, creating a folder for like new revenue ideas and things of that nature. But I wasn't sure what folks' opinions are on that, but, I did talk to Caesar last week in regards to that, and we had some ideas of maybe like creating a form to help facilitate that. So, first, I guess, just want to get you guys' opinion or thoughts on that. That's, something.
Folder's still there, Todd.
Okay.
Yep. It's
Yeah.
still up on the share drive. I think it's great. I mean, the one that, we had a couple of interesting ones last year. Felt like we were tilting at windmills, but at least we should start trying to generate them, right? There was a few around transportation and that solution. There was a few others that others committee members had come up with. So yeah, I mean, the folder's still there on the share drive. I think we can use a form, or we can just drop notes in it either way, so that we don't lose them, and we get to talk about them here. And I think now we caught that sort of in the middle of the budget process last year. I think if we get it now, and as you guys are seeing the budgets,
Yes.
that's when the ideas will come to you, and maybe we just all drop them in there so that we don't not talk about them. So yeah, there's a folder out on the share drive. I'll make sure it's prominent and in that finance committee folder, where I don't think that's where it is right now.
Tom, and
Yes,
this is to add on to Todd's. I know Todd and I have talked in possibly making the form portion of it, which is why we talked about making it a form available to the public. And I think that was the form. That was the purpose of the form portion. If you wanted to keep it kind of internal to the department heads and the committee, I would just recommend remaining it the folder.
yeah, I mean,
Interesting.
I think we have an obligation. That creates an obligation, right? And so I just put this forward to the committee, right? That creates an obligation that we respond. We would have to respond with rationale for yes, no, maybe why. We'd have to respond. I mean, I think, Cindy, I think we have does that create for us an obligation to adjudicate every one of those ideas and, give them due consideration, I mean, I want to I'd love to have them. I'm worried about, be careful what we wish for a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Tom. I think it makes sense just to start small, right? And just working internally with the department heads and, build up some capacity and best practices around them, right? Because to your point, it's going to take time to, vet their items and things of that nature. So
yeah. What I've found with most of these, and my experience in going from private sector to public, is that there's lots of ideas that come in from the private sector that are for very good reasons just not doable in a municipal environment. So I think the experience base of our community is different from what we actually are able to do, particularly around like compensation, right? I mean, I've stepped in it a couple of times, frankly, on that, guys, because I think about it as a private sector matter, and there are just different rules of the road that we have to follow. So I think maybe we do keep it small and internal and not make it a public forum yet. And let's see, just as a place for us to generate ideas. Now, every one of those ideas that we bring forward and discuss will be in a public forum here. So it won't be that anything in the forum is not transparent to the community. But I don't want to create a situation where our limited resources are spent having to really analyze each one of those suggestions from the community because we don't have the manpower.
All right, and I'll make sure that everyone has access to that.
Okay.
And then if anyone on the finance committee could just confirm and then tell me if you guys can't or don't have access to the OneDrive folder, because it's obviously been a little while. I know that Frank and Jim, I know we had exchanged emails and you guys are all set, but if anyone else is having trouble, just let me know so I can make sure that you guys are.
I can't get on with my laptop, Caesar.
All right, I can give you a call tomorrow.
Okay.
And then Tom, am I all caught up on the meeting recordings for you?
Yes, you are now. And so
Okay.
that when I get a secretary, we will sit with her or him and we will produce minutes from
All right.
meetings that we've missed.
I just want to make sure I'm caught up. There was a lot of meetings going on, so.
There were, yeah, but I think we have all the recordings now. Caesar, thank you.
Yep.
I think there are 4 that we missed, so it's not a huge amount, but there are 4 meetings for which we owe minutes and we need to take care of that. Anything else?
I have 2 questions.
Darlene?
Hi, Happy New Year to everyone.
Same to you.
So actually, Sandy, just a quick question on the 100,000. Was that something that you responded to at the state level for, the money that was going to be earmarked, or should I be doing that?
I think you probably should start the paperwork unless, if you want me to, I'll be glad to.
No, I don't. I just want to make sure. Somebody said that they thought maybe you already did it. And I'm like, oh, no, I hope not. But anyway, because I would do that. So take that off the plate. The second question is the fiscal budget for 2024. Do I wait for, the senior center has been an item, of course. And is that something that we consider, or should I can talk about with my liaison, Cheryl, at some point, or is that going to be, should that be something in the budget? I don't think so, but I just need to ask.
Right, so if we go forward, when we go forward with that, that would be a capital article.
Right.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be in your budget.
Right.
So you go ahead and start your budget.
Right.
And don't forget to put in your wage and personnel proposals for the additional position. Make sure that gets in before the 11th, so
Right.
it can be considered.
Right. Okay.
All right.
Right.
But
So,
yes, it would be in your, that would be your budget. You go ahead and start your budget.
Right.
The Council on Aging will figure out what kind of an article we need for that.
Okay, yeah, because I had come in at the time when all this was just happening last year, so I
Right.
wasn't sure how that was. I knew it was a capital planning budget item, but I just didn't know if there needed any other things to be enrolled in there. All right, thank you.
All right.
So for the committee's awareness, I presume everyone was at the town hall at the town meeting last year. The senior center was voted in. We had a capital contribution that was available to us from an unused allocation that we had, but we're still short. So that would be the capital article that we'd be writing for this year, right, Sandy?
Right.
Yes.
Isn't that money protected for 4 or 5 years, if I remember correctly from the town meeting?
Yeah.
The
So
Yeah,
the
we're-
1.6,
short.
right,
1.6 is, but we're still
Right.
short.
1.6, that's right,
right.
right.
But we have come up short. We
Yes.
need quite a bit more, so it's going to have to be a decision as to, how are we going to get that money? Are we going to bond for it? What's the best way to get it?
And that's
Right.
capital planning.
Right.
Correct, and with our new TA coming on board, he's fairly well-versed in that arena of helping with that type of funding, correct?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, based on our conversations
Mhm.
during the interview process and his resume. So I
Right.
think that will help, that there may be some additional funds out there that can be brought in as well. Is that correct?
Well, he's a good
Well,
grantsman,
that's what-
Frank. I
yeah.
think what you're
Yes.
referring to is his
Grant
grant,
writing.
his
That's
grant
correct.
skills, his grant writing skills. That's possible.
Yes,
But what we probably have left here, because the gap is so big, is floating a bond or some other way of financing this with a long-term financing,
Right.
with a sort of a debt facility.
yes. I have a question, Sandy. You sent out the letter, the email to all department heads regarding the wage and personnel for the budgets, and that all went fairly smooth with all departments.
It went out. I haven't heard back from
Yeah, okay,
from
so-
too many,
No
but
echo, right?
yeah, not
we've
Okay,
yet.
that's what I was wondering.
You guys will probably hear it from your department heads.
Right.
The one, when you contact them, that's when you'll probably hear, what they think they can do.
Right, okay. And one other thing, Tom, we're gonna stay with the Zoom meetings, is that correct?
Hope so.
For our meetings, or?
There's generally, I mean, at 6 o'clock, it's usually easier for us to get a quorum, Frank. The membership has generally been really supportive of doing Zoom meetings. I think we get more public participation this way, and I know we certainly get a quorum more often. We don't have to struggle to make quorum. Why don't we leave the 23rd on, and once there's a new chairman in place, you may want to vote it differently, but I think for right now, it seems to work for everyone. Anyone object?
No.
No,
Good. So I think for as long as the governor says it's okay, then we do it this way. I know occasionally we have to have joint meetings, and then it's much,
Sure.
particularly when we do them upstairs, it's much easier to do them in person.
Right.
okay, great. Thank you.
Sure. Anything else? Okay, could I entertain a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Bye.
Have to
Motion
do a
car-
roll call vote.
Oh, I do a
guys.
roll call. Sorry, I'm confused now. Frank, I had to do the last few without a roll call. Sorry about that. So roll call vote, please. Frank,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Cheryl,
Yes.
Todd,
Yes.
Jim, and myself. Oh, Jim, come off mute.
Yes.
Thank you. And myself is a yes. So call the meeting adjourned at 6:40 on January 9th. We will see you all on 23rd. Expect some correspondence from Sandy very shortly.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Nice night, guys.
Thank
Good
you.
night.